Welcome to Storm the Gates, friends. We are your official podcast for the MidTexas Conference of the Global Methodist Church. And I'm so excited to say your hosts here, Shay Ryanga and...
I'm Jason Nix. So excited to be back with you guys after a couple months of downtime and dad time and all that kind of fun stuff. All good things to report. Baby boy is here. Dakota is in the house, and we are doing all the cool baby things. Just bottles and naps and diapers and cute clothes and calls with grandma and grandpa and all that kind of fun stuff. So it has been an absolute trip, but I have missed you guys. I've missed our time together and have been tracking, and so grateful for Philip. So grateful for Forrest, so grateful for Lauren coming in here and just knocking it out of the park. Um, like crazy.
We missed you, brother. What's the most surprising, shocking new dad responsibility that you're still not quite used to yet?
Well, I think so. It's cliche, but I'm learning the older I get. Most things that are cliche for a reason because they're pretty
Yeah.
accurate.
Yep.
Um, but just the amount of the change in your thinking. So the only way I know to describe it is this, and I get long-winded, so y'all know this, humor me. When you get married, you realize very quickly that there's a level of dying to self that you have not experienced before that is going to be required as you step into your marriage. And then there's just a whole new level when there's an infant involved. Um, so there is no plan strategy. What are we going to do? Like there is just what is the need, like, and so
Yeah.
um it's been the coolest thing that surprised me around this, like, oh, there's whole new levels of dying to self that are are about to take place. And then the other piece is, and I told this to some folks in our church, um I thought I knew how to pray, or I thought my prayer life was really strong. um but in the process of the adoption and our time in a different state and bringing him home, and the nights where he was a little colicky and we had to change formulas, and just crying, and tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I began to realize that um, even just humming lullabies and just calming him down, like, I began just praying, like,
Mm.
he
Yeah.
just over my son, and something just kinda came out of me. I mean, it was just the Lord doing what he does. I was like, "I have never prayed like this before. I have never
Mm.
prayed with this much, um, conviction and intentionality and faith,
Yeah.
just over Dakota." And good God. Uh, so much to learn. So the surprise is everything I thought is just out the window, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so now we go on to the next chapter.
Yeah. That's
Ooh.
good.
So, and then
That's
you
good.
feel a little crazy, and Shay, you've got 2 kiddos of your own, and um, did you experience the thing where you're like, is this normal? What's not normal? Should I be panicking right now? Like, at what point is me trying to comfort my child harming them? Like, are they telling me something's wrong?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
like you feel nuts, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then you're both crazy together in different ways,
Mm.
and so, we have a tendency, Lindsay Kay and I, to, papaw when I would do backward somersaults off the bed and bust my head open, and whenever I have a shaved head, you can see all my scars on my head from all kinds of different things, and it was mainly papaw's response was, "Hey, we'll stick a butterfly bandage on it, call it good." So I have a little bit of papaw in me, whereas, Lindsay's ready for the ER.
Yeah.
So it's like butterfly bandage, it's gonna be fine. It's all good. They're made of rubber versus no, this could be really serious. So yeah, the give and take in that is always fun. And again, like you said, in marriage and in parenting now, we are constantly in a spectrum of representing those different sides, and we've moved and come closer and closer together. And it's a beautiful thing because
Yeah.
it's just the beauty of coming together and uh, giving a little bit and learning eventually. Eventually you do learn some things. It
Yeah.
takes a while.
Well, it's the coolest thing.
It's a whole lot of, I don't know what to do. I don't know. I don't know. Is this right? Is this, I don't know. We're just going to go with it. We're just going to do our best
It's the
and pray a
it
lot.
it's the coolest thing to those moments where I'm like, I have 0 I don't have any more tricks. There's no I don't have there's not another position. Like, I don't know what you need. Um, and it's like, without fail, uh, Liz will come around and she'll be like, "Well, let me hold him." And just I swear I was just holding him that way, or, like, we were just doing that. And it's like he clips right in, and vice versa, where, like, I've just been, "Well, let me grab him," and it's like, "Oh, like, God knows what he's doing." My wife's incredible, and
Yeah.
I did not realize how much she had planned for him until it started to be go time, and so it's like, well, the list of things you need gets really long really fast, and she's already got it, and it's, we're pulling it out of the cabinet, and, uh, the different kinds of bottles and all the different clothing and all the different stuff. She just knocked it out of the park. But just that back and forth of like, I don't have to have all the answers because God has given me this incredible woman, that when I'm at the end of my rope, I just kind of wave the white flag and we team up, and I get to just watch. Oh, that's beautiful. Like, and that's been super, super cool. And then, um, just nerding out a little bit, but getting, to at ordination and getting to see Dakota, he was baptized, by Bishop Leah, um, and just that moment of God's goodness on so many fronts, just, like,
Mm,
together, um, and just for our families, and, um, for Liz and I, and just to see, like, "Hey, man, promises," like, uh, we sometimes shy away from talking about, like, when God promises you something, it's good because it can feel a little sticky, or we're trying to manipulate or something like that. But hey, when it's that evident, you're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah. No, 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 that's just God's goodness." I'm just gonna
yeah.
sit here and watch it and enjoy it, and try not to cry standing in front of a room full of people, as Bishop Lee is holding Dakota, and, I'm
Yeah.
making eye contact with Ryan, uh and Ryan Barnett, and I'm just like, "Oh, don't cry. Don't cry." So, too much fun, man, but, I love it. It's we need affirmation, like,
Yeah.
and God's good to always give it to us, and so you run through seasons like this, and, a lot of my built-in, um, affirmation mechanisms were removed because I wasn't preaching, and I wasn't, doing home visits and all those things where people are really quick just to tell you like, "Man, yeah, like that ministered to me."
Yeah.
Feel like you're kinda out there in a valley by yourself. Um, and so those moments were extra sweet just to be like, this is just affirmation of what God has done, is doing, and is yet to do. And I didn't have to do anything. Like, I didn't manufacture this. Um,
Yeah.
I simply just kind of was obedient as I could be, and God did the rest. I'm
Praise the Lord. We
probably
miss
pulled on way too much, but it's been
No, you're good.
uh,
It's glad that
I guess
yeah,
the fire
have
in
you
the bones.
yeah. Glad to have you back too. We got, Doctor Daniel Topalski, and, he made mention of this line, "Protestantism is a strange bird." And I don't know, we didn't ask him this, but, I like to imagine what kind of a bird that is. And definitely not a flightless bird. I think we're a flying bird. I think we're a beautiful bird, a smart bird. Definitely not a dodo bird. We are alive and well, not extinct. And so
Historically, it would be the pelican, right? Because it's the
The
pastoral
pelican.
and
Ooh, I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Pelican.
I'm
I
researching
like
that
that.
too. So I've been looking at a lot of the historic pelican in stained glass and that kind of stuff that represents kind of the pastoral call and the self giving of yourself um, to those entrusted to your charge and those different things.
Ooh, the pelican's perfect.
And it's cool.
That's the strange bird that
It's a
we are.
strange
We're the
bird.
pelican.
If
Yeah.
there ever was a strange bird,
They're
it
goofy, they fly, they carry life, they're so fun to watch. Oh, man, that's good, I like that. Pelicans. We're pelicans. We in the GMC, that's our mascot bird. We're the pelicans. I like it.
and all the Louisiana churches are like, "Yeah!" The New Orleans Pelicans is the basketball team there.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Topalski and we were joking offline, like, he was like, "Don't call me doctor, don't call me doctor," and I just wanna call him doctor. He is a doctor, he does have his doctorate, and he just has that aura, he has that
Mhm.
presence about him, and man, can he speak with such wisdom and not waste words, and so I had struggled to not call him doctor, but he was very generous with his time and has had many roles in the GMC and will continue to. And we're so grateful for his leadership as Bulgaria was the
Whoop.
first ever conference in the Global Methodist Church. He was like the first presiding elder ever in the Global
Yeah.
Methodist Church. So he was very generous. He just finished up some time with us in MidTexas as he was here for our third annual awakening. And y'all won't want to miss this because he definitely blessed us with what he shared and threw something down. So I will tease you with the gauntlet that he threw down. He definitely challenged us in terms of our how we do ministry and worship. And so I'll let you listen to hear what he has to say. All right, friends, we are here with the Reverend Very Dr. Daniel Topalski. I know, Daniel, I'm going to do my best not to call you doctor. I do my very best. But we are so privileged and blessed to have you here. You are back in Bulgaria. We're talking to you from Texas to Bulgaria. So how is it going? How are you feeling? You've only been back a few days.
Yes, I try to go back to myself, to my real Bulgarian self. And I can say I'm doing very well. And thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great joy and really privilege to be your guest.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a string of questions for you, and they kind of are all over the place. But um, just since you're just leaving the annual awakening, and we had the theme of "Can I get a witness?" and there were so many testimonies that were a part of every single part of the annual awakening, and then you went with Bishop Leah Hitty Gregory and toured through some of the churches there in Mid Texas. And so I think we wanted just to kind of open the floor, and you can take as much time as you need and that you
Mhm.
want. And we would just love to hear your testimony of how you came to the faith and how the Lord has worked in your life. And that can be as in depth and extensive as you want. So
Mhm.
we're going to just kind of open the floor. Man, I would love to hear the story of how you and the Lord um, intersected.
Thank you. It was in September 1991. I remember that very well. It was just after the changes, the end of the communist regime. It was during my last year at high school. Back then it was 11th grade. Now it's 12, but back then it was 11th grade. And I received an invitation to visit a Protestant church in my birth city. And this was something absolutely new for me because Protestantism in Bulgaria is a strange birth, you know. And somehow I was very well prepared to accept it without, any second thoughts. And I went there, and it was the parsonage of the Methodist Church. But during the communist regime, Methodists tried to preserve the parsonage because the main building was already taken and transformed into the puppet theater. So they tried to keep the parsonage at least as possible place for them to have a worship services. And because the communists counted all the time people, and if they are going down a certain number, they will take also the parsonage. So they invited Pentecostals to come and to have a joint venture, so to speak, together in order to preserve the parsonage. And as you can predict, Pentecostals were more vital. And when I went to this place, to the parsonage of the Methodist Church, the former parsonage, it was a Pentecostal church. And it was a youth meeting. And back then in this church, they had probably more than 100 young people. So it was very vibrant and very lively church, most of them from the musical high school. So it was also a very musical church.
Mm.
And I responded to the call, the altar call, during the first worship service. And again, it was so natural. I don't know how, but I felt myself so prepared to go in that direction. So I started to read my New Testament, and then I bought my first Bible. It was not so easy back then because it was just after the end of communism. So they started to reprint all translations. And, I felt that is the most natural way to continue my life. It was really something like John Wesley, strangely warm heart moment, without big, probably crisis or catharsis within me, but very natural continuation with the certainty that this is the right direction for my life. So it was really a very big church back then with a lot of young people. During the week, we had 2 youth worship services, a lot of additional initiatives. We managed to organize the first Bulgarian festival for Bulgarian regional Christian music, national youth camp, and so on and so on. But Pentecostal theology was not exactly for me. All the time I tried to find something more balanced, to closer to my preference of Christianity. Not only because Bulgaria is is an Orthodox country, but because within me I felt this urge to seek something, deeper, much deeper. Because back then it was all the time about accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and the emphasis was not on what is following after this first step, sanctification and so on. We used all these terms back then, but without proper, I think, understanding. And it took, more years than I expected, because the Methodist Church in my birth city of Pleven, in the center of northern Bulgaria, was restored in 1995, but with people coming from the Church of God. So again, some sort of Pentecostal presence, not really Methodist only by name. I tried to start visiting this place, but I was absolutely not satisfied. And I said again, from the same, I'm looking for something completely different. So yeah, it took almost a decade for me to start visiting the Methodist Church in our city after the change of the local pastor. So when I arrived there, I already had experienced preaching and teaching, primarily for youth worship services or youth summer camps and so on. So I was immediately invited by the local pastor to lead the Bible studies. And I like to do that very much. So it was a very, how to say, easy connection with the local Methodist church. And back then, I was recently I recently graduated from Faculty of Law, so a brand new lawyer. And I was invited by my predecessor, the former superintendent, to serve as a legal advisor for the church, because back then we had a lot of cases of restitution of church property, so taking back the church property from the state. But when I had a conversation with him, he said, okay, we need a lawyer, that's clear, but we need a preacher as well. And I know that you have already a long experience doing that, so it's a good option for us to have you as a lawyer and a lay preacher. I accepted, and I started my ministry for the Methodist Church. And then after certain, classes, I became local pastor. And then because I already read a lot of theology, and I was very interested, reading theology, and especially dogmatic theology and church history, I said to myself, it's time to formalize all this, to receive something back, after so much extensive reading. So I decided to go and pursue my theological studies at the Orthodox Theological Faculty in the same university where I studied law. It's Veliko Trnovo State University, and Veliko Trnovo is the old capital of Second Bulgarian Kingdom. It's a nice historical place. So I went there, and it was a revolutionary move. I first asked for permission of my superintendent, and he said, okay, I will handle that with the board of ordained ministry. It's a strange move, but I will handle it. So you have my permission and my promise that the board will approve it. And during the first annual conference, the bishop announced, we received information that Daniel is, studying theology at the Orthodox Theological Faculty, but we don't know why. So I said to myself, okay, I will keep silence. Probably superintendent forgot to inform him about our conversation. But the next annual conference, the same thing happened. He's studying, but we don't know why. So finally, I had an opportunity to be with the bishop in Romania for the Third Ecumenical Assembly. And on our way back to Bucharest Airport, he asked me, Daniel, why you decide to go against the Book of Discipline, starting your studies without permission? I said, no, I received permission. You have to ask your superintendent about that. And, after this conversation during the next annual conference, it was announced that I'm studying, and the purpose is clear because I want to be ordained as elder. So it was an interesting move. And after my decision to go to the Orthodox Theological Faculty, it was decided that our future candidates will go also to the Orthodox Theological Faculties in the country, because our first candidates after the end of communism were sent to Austria to receive their theological education. And first of all, it was very expensive, for the Bulgarian church. We received support from the Swiss church for that purpose, but it was very expensive. And secondly, all these candidates, they received scholarships much higher than their salary back as a pastor. So how to motivate them to stay pastors in our country and not to go back to Austria or Germany or Switzerland or whatever, Western Europe in general. So now all these people from the first generation of candidates for ordained ministry, they left ministry and they are living permanently and working abroad in different countries in Western Europe. So all other candidates went through Orthodox theological faculties, and then they added their additional Methodist courses through the Methodist Academy. It was a very good initiative during our times as United Methodists, initiated with the help of the General Board of Global Ministries. So it was partly block seminars, partly distant studies, but it was an excellent opportunity for all the candidates for ordained ministry from different European countries to know each other, to become friends, and to work together in the future. I was in this first pilot group of people, and now we're trying with your people from Wesleyan House in Truett to do something similar like Methodist Tea Academy for future candidates for then ministry in Europe. With God's help, I think we'll manage to do it because it's necessary. Without this additional Methodist courses, you cannot be ordained in the Global Methodist Church. So I started my journey like that, and I was a probationary minister. I was moved in a different church with a very big history and great heritage. Then I was ordained elder and immediately appointed superintendent. And the superintendent in our part of the world is a different role than it was the role of the district superintendent back in the United Methodist Church in the United States, because we are talking about national Methodist churches. So the superintendent is a legal representative, mainly in the relations with the state, with all other religious organizations. The superintendent is acting as an employer, CEO, and you name it. But when I was asked to become one, I was surprised, first of all, because I just I was just at the end of my probationary years. Yes, I was asked to chair the church council for a year until the bishop decide to whom to appoint as a superintendent. And I was very much relieved. This is the end of this year, and I will go back to my pastoral ministry and full stop. But I was asked not only to become superintendent for Bulgaria, but for the newly established Romanian United Methodist Church. So I was responsible also for them, for organizing some sort of local pastor and lay preachers course of study, and so on. So I was appointed, but my condition was I would like to stay as a pastor of the local church as well, because it's too early for me to go and to be only a superintendent. And then I was a superintendent for 12 years in the United Methodist Church, 8 of them. I was also superintendent for the Romanian part, a lot of travel back and forth. And in 2022, we decided to leave. And during this annual conference in 2022, I was replaced as a superintendent. We decided to leave. It was an interesting event back then, but managed to do it anyway. And a month later, I was asked by Keith Boyette. Back then, he was transitional connectional officer of the Global Methodist Church, to return back as then presiding elder of Bulgarian annual conference. Terminology was not fixed back then. And we were the first annual conference in the Global Methodist Church ever. So I was the first presiding elder of the Global Methodist Church ever. So many first things, and it was not our goal, because sometimes people are asking about how did you manage to be first annual conference? It was not our goal, but we, all of the pastors, we were very clear this is the right time to go out, because it was not only a matter of our opinion regarding the human sexuality and definition of marriage and ordination standards. It was a much deeper problem. And for us, staying in United Methodist Church was a dead end, because somehow a culture of dependency was developed from the very beginning. And by the way, this mistake was made twice in the history of the Methodist Church. First time by American missionaries when they came and they started the Methodist Church in Bulgaria in 1850s. And again, after the end of the communist regime, by the leadership of the Central Conference of Central and Southern Europe. And when you develop a culture of financial dependency, your people are disconnected from responsibility. The church is not very active anymore. The church is not creative. The church is not ready to take any risks. The church is simply trying to survive. And this surviving mode was really going to a dead end. So for us, it was a matter of death and life to go out of this framework, to risk everything completely and to start anew. So when I was back in Texas, and when I visited all these predominantly small town churches this time, which is a very nice experience for me. All the time, I started my presentation with this sentence: "This is not a story of a big success; it's a story of a new beginning.
Mm.
And this is our last chance to do the things right in the history of the Methodist Church in our country." So this is in brief. And after that, I was also elected to serve in the Transitional Leadership Council of the Global Methodist Church, and then when they fixed the terminology, I became president pro tempore and then conference superintendent. But yes, all these things for me, the roles and the positions are not changing anything, because my responsibilities are still the same. But everything is different now.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I repeated constantly during my visits last week in Texas was our greatest challenge is that we are all the same, but the church is not the same anymore. So
Mm.
how to address this main issue, how to explain to our people that this church is not the United Methodist Church anymore. We had the same annual conference, even same leadership, same superintendent, even. Yeah, the bishop is different, which is a great advantage, I believe. But everything in Bulgaria is the same. We have no this outward visible signs of a change. Like in the United States, you have a different type of organization. You have different boundaries of your annual conferences, different leadership. For us, it's all the same.
Mm.
But we have to address it, and we have to address it in a very creative way. And until now, I think that we are on the right path this time. And hopefully, with God's help, we will stay on it, not going in a different other directions or looking for shortcuts, because shortcuts are not working in the church. Believe me.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, I'm sorry to cut you off or to jump in here so quick, but two things. One, I've always loved the part of your story and your testimony where, because of your legal training, because you knew the laws of the land, when it came time and you pastorally sensed the Lord saying it's time to go, it's time to step away from the UMC. That there were mechanisms that were triggered to try to keep that from happening, but you knew, you were just abundantly clear on, like, here, no, we are allowed to do this, and we as the church in Bulgaria, as the Methodist Church in Bulgaria, and you took those steps, and it was, so it's like I think about Esther and Joseph, where it's like things took place early in throughout their life, and like you were called to Bulgaria for such a time as this. And just I love seeing that little piece of God's faithfulness, and really, if you want to get even more widespread with it, y'all were the first annual conference of the Global Methodist Church. So that wasn't just for Bulgaria; it was for us in MidTexas and
Mhm.
for every single Global Methodist Church around the world. Was sparked out of um, the years that you spent in studying law. And who would have thought that? It's like that's the Lord doing what only He can do. And then second question, and just that after that comment was, how is it going? So we're about halfway through this 5-year period and of working together, Mid Texas Conference
Mhm.
and the
Mhm.
Bulgarian Conference. And I love what you and Leah have laid out about the goal is for the church in Bulgaria, the Global Methodist Church in Bulgaria, to be self-sustaining and not to be dependent on an outside funding. How is that going? Tell me. I would love to hear just kind of what's taking place in that.
Until now, it's going very well. This 5-year financial plan to move from financial dependency to self-sufficiency, it's very ambitious, I know that. And when I introduced it for the first time, some people said, "You're crazy, really." I said, "Probably yes, but this is our last chance to do the things in the right way, so we have to do it." And I'm very thankful for the support of the MidTexas Annual Conference because, this is the second year of the plan. And until now, our churches, they are fulfilling their part of the obligation. For some smaller churches, it's not easy. I know that. But again, we are trying to move forward in a spirit of solidarity. And we ask bigger churches to go even beyond 100% if it's possible. And from the very beginning, our call to the churches is do as much as possible now.
Yeah.
Don't wait, for certain percent to appear as your obligation next year. Go to the full extent of what you have and what you can contribute for the future of the church. Because we have to, to support these small village churches. We cannot simply shut them down and said, okay, financially speaking, it's not okay to do this ministry anymore. Because in many of these small settlements, this is the only active Christian presence. So we have to do something about that. In every village in Bulgaria, you have an Orthodox church, but this Orthodox church is not open, or the priest is responsible for 14 places to go around and probably to have mostly funerals here and there because people prefer to baptize their kids in the big cathedrals in the big cities, or to be married in the big cathedrals in the big cities, not in their village church. So in many places, Methodist Church is the only presence. So we are doing very well concerning to the plan. And the greatest challenge that I've received during my stay in Texas was when Bishop Leah asked me, okay, probably during the annual conference meeting in Bulgaria, we can gather, a donation for the church in Rwanda. And I said, okay, we will gladly do it. But I started to think about it and said, okay, why not to step in as a third partner in this partnership? We are small, I know, like small brother in this in this picture. But this is the natural next step that we have to take as a church, reclaiming our financial responsibility. So the next step is to going beyond ourselves. Going beyond the necessity to, to supply only what is needed for us, but to open our eyes and to see the needs of others. Otherwise, it will be like in this parable for the person with one single talent. At the end, this talent was taken. And for me, this is a very simple logic of the gospel. It's not about prosperity, not at all, not prosperity gospel. It's a very simple logic. Everything given to you is given by God himself to be sacrificed for his purposes. And only in this way, these small things, at the beginning, could be multiplied in the lives of many. This is the simple and a very practical logic of the gospel. So I think this is the next step, developing this plan, because it's not only about money. It's really about a new beginning and doing things right in every possible aspect of our church existence. So our cooperation or partnership is not only about transfer and receiving of money. it's mainly about being in real partnership, strengthening each other, exchanging best practices, or supporting each other. Especially, we rely on the support of American people who know in many different areas of church development how to strengthen and how to develop different kind of church ministry. And during this year visit of your people, we'll try to organize prayer workshops with Lauren Yates, and we will try to do things with our young people. And it's a great fit because we are doing a lot about prayer already. So this will simply add additional fuel to our activities, because we have our national prayer meetings organizing in different local churches on a regular basis. We are going in a particular local church. We are praying for the ministry of this church and for its pastor. We are praying for the renewal of the Methodist Church in Bulgaria. So people from all over the country are gathering in this single church, and we are rotating from church to church. And these meetings are very popular right now. And at the same time, since February the 10th, we started a period of intense prayer and fasting for the renewal of the Methodist Church in our country. And it will continue even until the end of our annual conference. So this time I said to our people, okay, this time you will be even better than the Orthodox people. They are fasting for 49 days. 7 weeks, you will fast even much longer and pray. And it's a great blessing for us, because every week a certain district is responsible, for the prayer fasting. And I feel the change in the spirit, in the mood of our people. It's not only about survival anymore, not at all. It's about great expectations for full renewal of the Methodist Church in Bulgaria. I still believe that we have great perspectives for development, despite of humble statistics that we have at the moment. Because I firmly believe that the how to say, the Methodist DNA is really a great source for revitalization, not only for the church in Bulgaria, but for the life of many people. Because it's about providing discipline patterns for growing and for, pursuing your sanctification. It's not a journey from awakening to awakening, a journey from outpouring of the Holy Spirit to other big outpouring of the Holy Spirit. It's about daily journeying with God, using the means of grace in a very organized manner, being part of your class, and being, a mature disciple of Christ, sharing your faith, sharing your resources, and trying to serve God in the best possible way. This was the genius of Mr. Wesley, this organized pattern of Christian discipleship. And we have to use them all again. We have to reclaim them all again, because it's not enough to quote Wesley all the time. We know a lot of quotations. We know a lot of things. We can talk about things a lot. But you can experience the joy of prayer and joy of fasting and joy of all other means of grace if you start practicing them. Talking about them, it's not enough. This intellectual type of Christianity is not transforming the heart and the lives of people. Even it's not transforming the mind, I can say.
I think you may have just answered my question. My question was kind of circling back to earlier in your faith formation, your desire to be deep and to long for the depth that you found wanting and lacking in certain Pentecostal churches in your experience that you said. And so, given the dominance of the Orthodox Church in Bulgaria, you may have I think you beautifully just answered this, but if there's anything more you'd say as to why did you stay in the Methodist Church as opposed to going the deep well of orthodoxy?
The well is really deep, but the current situation in the Orthodox Church is not very satisfying, because if they really practice everything according to their rich and old tradition, it will be great. But in many aspects of church life, they're more talking about it than practicing it. So for me, it's not enough. And the other thing is, when you keep your way of worship so old-fashioned, this is somehow disconnecting from the life of the people. And I know that many non-Orthodox people, especially in non-Orthodox countries, are fascinated by the liturgy of the Orthodox Church. That's great. But mostly because they try to serve in modern languages when they're out of the Orthodox, typical traditional Orthodox countries. And now we still have liturgy in Church Slavic language. The readings are in Bulgarian, okay, and the sermon is in Bulgarian language, okay, but still, I cannot understand why they are doing that, because the ideal of Apostle Paul is clear. I prefer to have a few words in language understandable to people. So the heritage is great, but it's very difficult to put it into practice. And the other thing about Orthodoxy that I don't like, Orthodox Church is, how to say, for the Orthodox Church, ethnophilitism is very typical. They're all the time they're claiming.
Define that word for us, if you would.
Church nationalism.
Yeah.
Let's put it in the most understandable way. We don't talk about the Orthodox Church in Bulgaria. We are talking about the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, the Greek Orthodox Church, the Russian, Romanian, Serbian, and so on. They call themselves sister churches, but if you try to analyze their relationships, they are really sisters from different mothers or different fathers. I don't know, but it's quite clear that it's very difficult for them to be in good relationships with each other. In the past, when the Bulgarian Orthodox Church was restored, we were under the Ottoman Empire. And because the Sultan gave us permission to reestablish the Bulgarian Orthodox Church as an independent jurisdiction, all other Orthodox churches gathered for a council, and they decided that Bulgarian Orthodox Church is plagued by ethnophilitism. And there was a big schism between our church and all others. But in fact, this was a great hypocrisy, because everywhere in Orthodoxy there is ethnophilitism. And if they live according to their own canons, I will be very happy, because according to one of these canons, you can have only one bishop in a certain place. But if you go in the United States, in some big cities in the United States, you have archdiocese headquarters of Bulgarian Orthodox Church, of Russian Orthodox Church, of Romanian Orthodox Church. Okay, what about ethnophilitism? It's clearly present and very well in the Orthodox Church. That part I don't like. I don't like the idea that the Bulgarian nationality is defined by Orthodoxy, and Orthodoxy is an element of the Bulgarian national identity. I'm very much Bulgarian, as all other Bulgarians, I can say. Methodist missionaries were very much in favor to, during the end of the Ottoman times, to support this movement, Renaissance movement of the Bulgarian nation in every possible aspect. The missionaries also helped and they were instrumental for the first modern translation of the Bible in modern Bulgarian language. And this was a great, contribution to the development of the modern Bulgarian language. So all these people were very much in favor of developing the Bulgarian national identity, not against it. So ethnophilitism and the disconnection between the nowadays practice, understanding, and policies of the Orthodox Church from their rich, really great theological tradition. These are my two reasons not to be Orthodox, probably.
Man, that's good. I was thinking about our own context in the U.S., and I love being American. I have so many in my family that have
Good for you.
Yeah, I know. Proud Bulgarians, proud Americans, and just love the national heritage in it all. But even in the U.S., right? We still we have this separation of church and state. Some folks will talk about almost like that's an American doctrine, the separation of church and state, and yet there's still this nationalistic understanding when it comes to our faith and politics, and the lines are very blurry and can be all together, and again that can lead us astray from the purity of the gospel and the kingdom of God that is at hand, and the values and the calling to live our
Absolutely.
lives, and the allegiance that is not split, that's wholly devoted to Jesus as Lord. That's one of the many challenges that we have as pastors and leaders in the church to help our folks navigate that and understand that and kind of see those sides differently.
Yeah. That's yeah. Jason, go.
I would say two sides of the same coin. So even though we're on different sides of the globe, the tension still exists there. And just how easy it is to kind of fall in with what is the norm for where you're at, and the challenges that are sitting there. So I've got a curveball question for you, if you don't mind
Okay.
me throwing you a curveball. So you just spent 10 days in Texas. You got to drive around with Bishop Leah and got to attend Annual Awakening. You were part of Annual Awakening last year. So holding fast to the truth of Scripture that says iron sharpens iron, and we are to sharpen each other. As you have engaged with the MidTexas Conference, are there any areas or things that you've seen? This can be general. I don't want to throw too much of a curveball. Anything you've seen where you're like, man, I think that they need to look at that or work on that, or as part of what you've seen in our churches where you see, hey, there can be growth and development in these different areas. We would love your perspective because it's so valuable to what we're doing.
If I have to be very I spent only a few days circulating around the churches, so you cannot say what's missing and what has to be developed in a particular local church or in the churches in general, only spending only few hours here and few hours there. But what we try to share with all these churches, me and my colleague, Reverend Vladimir Zhelezev, was, okay, probably we have to go back and to realize that the early Methodists were crazy about Holy Communion. I will use this word. They were very enthusiastic, and the modern day people will say they were crazy about Holy Communion. And we have to think again and again why, for God's sake, a renewal movement was so much also an emphasis on Eucharistic renewal, which is absolutely untypical, in the history of Protestantism. But when we go back to the days of Reformation, you will also realize that this was the main point of the conflicts between the reformers. It was not about other things, surprisingly so. It was all about Holy Communion. And Wesley was very, very a great fan, let's say it, of the Holy Communion. And that's why he wrote a sermon about our duty for constant communion. But every time when we go back to this sermon, and in this sermon, Holy Communion is described as a commandment and as a mercy. So who you are not to obey the commandment, who you are not to accept the mercy. But if we want to go back and to reconstruct the authentic Wesleyan understanding of Holy Communion, we have to go back to 166 Eucharistic hymns of Charles Wesley. And you can find in these hymns the beauty of Methodist Eucharistic theology. So I would like to see all Methodist churches practicing Holy Communion every week. Because for me, this is the full worship service. This is all the time a service of word and table. And where the word and table are disconnected, I think we are missing something very, very powerful. And why they were crazy? Because Christians during the apostolic times were very enthusiastic about that. And when we go to the second chapter of the book of Acts, verse 42, you see it very, very clearly. They constantly devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, to fellowship or communion, kinonia or koinonia, and then to a breaking of bread, was not church meals after worship service, but it was about Holy Communion, and then to prayer. I think Wesley brothers were very much aware about that how powerful tool and means of grace is Holy Communion. And we have to rediscover it. And I think this is a great opportunity that we have as a global Methodist church. So that's why I really, really expect us to preserve what already have been done in the United Methodist Church, at least for recovery of, for example, the great Eucharistic prayer, the great Thanksgiving. Its reach, theologically reach. You can, make reference to this prayer in every particular sermon because it's all connected with the main elements of Christian life. And I'm doing it constantly in order to people to understand that when we repeat these words, they are not empty words. This is an actualization of God's grace in your life in this particular moment in a very unique way. So hopefully we will manage not only to preserve what was done, but also to develop it. Because one of the greatest powers of Methodism, I believe, is in that, let's say it, ecumenical aspect of it. Because early Methodism, Wesley himself, Wesley brothers, were so much influenced by different theological traditions. So through that, we received the permission, so to speak, to go even beyond them, and to experience the fruits of all these traditions which informed early Methodism and made it as it was and still is. So it's a great Methodism. It's also a great ecumenical means of grace in the deepest possible sense, not as a sort of being in conversation with other, being able to sit around the same table, but not using the great tradition of Christian church through the centuries without any hesitation when it's good for building your community. That's why Wesley himself, that very well, collected different pieces and different writings from different authors in so-called Christian library. And according to him, these were the best examples of practical divinity. So theology for practical reasons, because theology only for its own satisfaction is the most dangerous thing in the church. Theology in service of the church and the ministry of the church, this is the best possible gift that we have to receive. So, in brief, this is only one thing, but I think it's important. Sometimes people say, okay, you Bulgarians are a little bit weird about Holy Communion all the time. You're talking about that. Why? Because I think it's important. That's why. I think it's Wesleyan. That's why. And I think it's apostolic. That's why. And so I would like to hear the, how to say, the arguments against it. And all the time, and this is the last thing about it, when I talk about Holy Communion, not in your churches, the people were generous to listen to me and not to object, but probably they have their own reservation inside them. But every time when I try to have a conversation about Holy Communion in different, Protestant circles, people all the time try to refocus the attention. This is not the most important thing. There are many other things, the fellowship, the relationships between people, but this is a building block for forming, the congregation into the body of Christ. So why every time when we are talking about Holy Communion, someone is coming and said, okay, let's talk about something more important than this. No, let's stay on this topic and talk it in deep, and not only say, okay, there is a sermon of Mr. Wesley, but he was a strange, extravagant guy, in some regards. So probably we don't need to go in that direction as well. But it's not about only John, it's about Charles, it's about this collection of hymns published 9 times during their lifetime. And this is very telling fact.
Gauntlet thrown down. I love it. There may even have been a prescription in there, Dr. Topalski. I'm not sure. That may have been a prescription right there.
Yeah, I know how to write prescriptions. Probably because I've learned Latin a little bit during my. And when we were students, we also entertain ourselves, writing prescriptions.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing that I think would be a great resource for us, and you may be able to speak to this, what is your role in the GMC currently now that we're out of the Transitional Leadership Council? And where I was going with that is to ask you about your role, not just in Bulgaria, but do you have a role on any of the commissions? And a question here too, is one of the responsibilities of the commissions to come up with a hymnal, a more standard book for us to use?
Book of worship.
When it comes to liturgies, book of worship, correct? Yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. This is a very good question because yesterday we had a meeting of the Connectional Council. So I'm serving in the Connectional Council. I'm a vice chair of the Connectional Council of the Global Methodist Church. And I was charged yesterday by our chair to convene the core group or the core group, which will start a task force for developing the Book of Worship of the Global Methodist Church. So, I will be part of this, but I will ask probably a person whose expertise in the area of liturgical theology and all that is much greater than me to chair permanently in the future this task force. But I will gladly be part of it. And one of the reasons to go there and to respond positively for the invitation to join this task force is really to be sure that despite of the fact that we are not part of the United Methodist Church anymore, we will cherish, accept, and keep the good things in the area of liturgical theology already done. Because, there is when you go into the Orthodox Theological Faculty, you can learn a lot of good stuff there. And almost at the beginning, they will tell you there is a triangle and you have doctrine, you have ethics, you have liturgy or worship. It's interconnected. And if you break this interconnection, it's very, very dangerous. So for me, it's very important to keep this triangle in the right order. This living connection between doctrine, ethics, and worship. And I can say in the United Methodist Church, this interconnection was in great danger. And it didn't work at all in many, many important aspects. So we have to understand that the book of worship is not simply a supplement to what we are doing, but it's an important tool. And if we use it in a good way, it can be also a powerful tool. I know that some people are not very happy about even having a book of worship. Let's go like we are right now. Free like birds, contemporary worship services. That's great. I'm absolutely in favor. Our worship services are almost all of them everywhere in Bulgaria. We are using contemporary music, but at the same time, when it comes to Holy Communion, we serve it according to the prescribed ways. So we still are using the United Methodist model because we don't have a approved global Methodist liturgy for Holy Communion. But when it comes to Holy Communion, we are becoming, surprisingly a high church again. And why? Because I cannot expect anything from low church when it comes to sacraments. Sorry. They can say this is a ritual, this is a declaration of something, this is something which I do, not God. I cannot accept it at all. Not for baptism, not for Holy Communion. So I'm part of the Connectional Council right now. It was a long process because I was among the initial group of people elected to serve as a member of the Connectional Council during the convening General Conference, which I missed, unfortunately. But I was elected in this initial group, and then different connectional commissions, they send their representatives to serve in the Connectional Council. And yesterday we elected the last 4 members in order to make the right balance, when it comes to different racial, ethnic, gender, and so on representation. So this is my current role right now on the global level, so to speak.
You would love, if you don't have this already, I can't remember who represented Bulgaria in Costa Rica, but this "Oh, for a heart to praise my God." So I lift this up because I don't know that they're still making this, but at least it's a good place to start because there are some liturgies for services of communion, services of consecration, of bishops, because we needed to do that in Costa Rica. And so I don't know who was the task force that put this together, but it is a very helpful resource. It would be kind of nice to produce these for the whole church, but I don't know if they're still making them.
For sure we will use this and many other resources. And I was part of the task force which prepared the ordination service for deacons and elders. So I was part of this part, but all others, I have no idea how they gather it and how they, made it possible. But I know some of the people involved in this process, and I'm sure that they will come on board, and they will work very hard to, to write a very good book of worship for the Global Methodist Church.
Yeah, and I love what you said way back on the theological education side of what you're experiencing and how you're going to be on the ground floor with Bulgaria, whether it's partnering with Truett Seminary at Baylor, schools like Wesley Biblical Seminary, Asbury, and others, I think are all, figuring out ways to be resources and help teach some of the West Bridge classes in contexts like yours, where it's dominated by an Orthodox church. In other countries, it might be a Roman Catholic church or whatever. And so it's exciting to see that as we figure out theological education, we're creative with that. It sounds like some very positive steps are already underway.
Yeah, for the theological education, and especially for the Methodist classes outside of the United States, we have to think and to work very hard, because we have no time to waste. For example, in Africa, if the state of Rwanda can simply close the churches because the pastors have no theological education, what's the response of the Global Methodist Church to that? We have to do these things, and we have already to be prepared to do something even today, not tomorrow. So the theological education is a very important part when it comes to all the countries outside of the United States. And also we have to be very creative how to complement the existing theological options in the countries with what is required by the Book of Doctrines and Discipline for ordination.
As we kind of turn our time to a close, I wanted to ask you, now that you've been through Texas a few times, 2 times at least, and you've covered some ground in Texas. Texas is a big state, and you've covered a lot. What are some of the meals you've looked forward to eating? Some of your favorite Texas meals that you can't get in Bulgaria?
Your barbecue is unique. We have barbecue, but it's predominantly pork thing. We have it in a different way. So your barbecue is really, really nice. You know how to cook meat. That's absolutely clear. So it's Mexican food. It's also very interesting to me. So last time we had tacos of different kind, and even tacos with barbacoa, which is food. It's also
Yes.
other type of barbecue. So I had the opportunity to experience different kinds of cooking meat, and this was not the most important part. The most important part was the hospitality of your people. It was exquisite, wonderful experience for us everywhere, because we every day we have 2 events. It was a lunch event and then dinner event, all the time with a lot of food. So when you are a guest, you have to to eat a lot, not only to speak a lot, but to eat a lot. But people were so generous to share their food, to do their best, accommodating us and to making us to feel at home. And I'm for the second time in MidTexas Conference, so uh, almost everywhere I'm seeing familiar faces, so I feel myself at home already. And hopefully your people who are coming for the second time this year, they will feel the same way in our country. And I think this is one of the best signs that our partnership is going in the right direction. It's not only about money transactions or exchange of best church practices. It's about building relationships and knowing each other better. So this purely human part of it probably is the best part. And for my colleague, Vladimir, it was the first time in the United States ever. So at the beginning, he was very reserved, let's say it in that way, not with great expectations. I don't know why, but when I started to think, I have to take someone with me this time, but probably I have to take him because he has all these reservations and he hesitated to come. And I think he was very happy that he accepted my invitation to come because, it was really a great experience of hospitality and people who are listening carefully, asking questions, and also ready to be in this partnership together, which is a great thing. So we are very thankful for this experience.
Is there a trip in the works from Mid-Texas to Bulgaria again?
It's
Y'all
already,
want to speak?
the list is done already, and they will come at the end of May. We will have our annual conference here at the end of May, and they will organize these prayer workshops in different churches, and also this think about the youth ministries also. We will organize it in different place, and probably next time we will try to organize a national camp with the participation of some of your young people, or vice versa. I don't know, but probably it's going in that particular direction, because we really need some help recovering our youth ministry after the COVID period, because it was a good ministry, and after COVID we didn't manage really to restart it in a good manner, because we are preoccupied with living, with finances, figuring out what to do, how to do it. So, but it's time really to go to the most important things, and young people and kids are a very important part of it.
It's incredible. Well, Daniel, I thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your ministry. Thank you for just the story and the witness of how God has worked through your life, and we are the recipients of so much of his goodness that was taking place on the other side of the globe years and years ago. So I know that I've enjoyed so much my time getting to spend with you and getting to just hear your heart for the church. Um, and I pray that all of our listeners that are listening to this right now would just lean in and just kind of pick up. God is moving in talking to us all across the globe, and we are better when we share these conversations and we spend time together in fellowship, and we allow each other into our lives and into our churches and into our different structures. And so this is the first of many conversations, and thank you for jumping on with us so soon after a very long trip. Man, we pray that you get restored and refreshed, and just reignited into the work of the ministry there in Bulgaria. And man, I can't wait to hear the reports of what God's doing in the months and years to come.
Thank you. Our prayers are also with you, because you guys are doing a very good job with your podcast. And you were the inspiration for us to start our own. So
All right.
it's
Praise
a
God.
very good outcome, from your podcast from the gate. So we are doing our podcast, BG Methodist. It's a very simple name. This is our brand in all social medias. And right now we are talking about with our presiding elders about the main elements of the apostolic tradition that we need to really to recover in a full sense in our church. So you were a source of inspiration for us as well.
Well, honored to be in partnership with ministry with you, brother. You have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Storm the Gates. We hope you leave us a 5-star rating, subscribe and follow us, share it around if this podcast blessed you. We'd love to connect with you. You can find us online at stgpod.com. You can email us at stgpod@midtexasgmc.org. You can also connect with us via YouTube. We're video now, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, and Apple. We hope you stay up to date on all that God is doing as we share testimonies of his powerful work in the Mid-Texas Conference of the Global Methodist Church. Remember, the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. Storm the gates.
So one of the other ordinands walks up and says, Reverend Doctor, it's so good to meet you. And I went, no, I'm not a doctor. And she goes, but that's what the 3 patches or 3 stripes on your sleeve mean. And I went, really? She goes, yeah, that means that you're a doctor. You have your PhD. And I was like, oh no. And so it's a little bit of an awkward silence because she wasn't sure, and I'm super embarrassed because I don't know what a robe patch means or whatever. And she goes, well, maybe it's a prophetic robe. And I went, you hush. So she did.
Maybe, who knows?
She said, you bought the robe that the Lord knew you would need down the road. And I was like, that's I haven't thought about that, but yeah, no,
Yeah, it's
that's
a great mix up between clerical and academic robes, I think.